Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the heart of Dunbridge, a small town with a reputation for its close-knit community, the summer of 2003 began like any other. Children ran through the streets, their laughter mingling with the echoes of cicadas. But beneath the sunlit veneer, a darkness lurked, brewing with the potential to shatter lives. It was during one of these sultry August afternoons that a life was extinguished, and the quiet tranquility of the town would never be the same. The storm rolled in suddenly that evening, dark clouds spilling over the horizon, mirroring the turmoil that would soon unfold. The rain began to patter against the pavement, an ominous drumbeat heralding the approach of catastrophe. When the police received a call around midnight, it was already too late. The victim, a local high school teacher named Sarah Collins, was found in her living room, lifeless and alone. Neighbors reported hearing muffled screams earlier, but the heavy rain drowned out the sound, rendering their fears impotent. In the face of the unthinkable, Sarah, beloved by her students and cherished by the community, was found sprawled on the floor amongst scattered papers, essays, marked with red ink, as if they were now insignificantly irrelevant to the hell that had unfolded within those walls. As detectives painstakingly combed through evidence, they immersed themselves in Sarah's life, determined to weave together the threads of her existence, searching for anyone harboring a motive to commit such a heinous act. Little did they know, the answers they sought were buried beneath layers of secrets and the constricting fear of someone watching from the shadows. Dunbridge would soon be gripped by an icy grip of uncertainty, a reminder that even the most serene places can harbor the darkest secret. The victim, Sarah Collins, was more than just a teacher. She was a mentor, a friend, and a beacon of hope for her students. Born and raised in Dunbridge, she was known for her infectious enthusiasm and unwavering belief in potential. Her bright classroom walls were adorned with inspirational quotes, but it was her genuine compassion that truly left an imprint on the young minds she nurtured. Friends described her as someone who could light up a room with her smile, a quality that was especially poignant during turbulent teenage years. As the detectives delved deeper into her life, they painted a vivid portrait of Sarah. She was a dedicated educator, often staying late to help struggling students or organizing community events to promote literacy. Her passion for teaching stemmed from her own childhood, facing difficulties in school before a few dedicated mentors offered her the support she desperately needed. In her late 30s, the echoes of her lessons still resonated with students who had long graduated, glowing with pride as they recounted their favorite memories of her. But beneath the surface, Sarah had her vulnerabilities. Recently, those close to her noted a shift in her usual upbeat demeanor. She had been more private than usual, often lost in thought, her laughter echoing less frequently in the hallway. When a co-worker gently pressed her about the change, Sarah merely remarked that she was dealing with some personal matters, a vague admission that left her colleagues unsettled. That evening when she was found, the detectives noted the disarray of her home. The living room, typically orderly, displayed signs of a struggle, as papers were scattered. And family photos lay askew. An emptiness pervaded the space, a stark contrast to the vibrant warmth that Sarah had cultivated over the years. If only they could tap into the whirlwind of emotions and fears within the confines of her heart, Perhaps they could uncover the truth behind the cold remnants of her life secrets that even the most vivid memories couldn't conceal. The crime scene. The flickering blue and red lights cast an eerie glow across the suburban landscape as the first responders arrived. Rain mingled with the harsh illumination, creating puddles that reflected the chaos unfolding inside 493 Cedar Lane. Detective Laura Jensen, a seasoned investigator with sharp intuition, stepped through the threshold, her heart heavy with the weight of untold stories whispering within these walls. The stench of dampness clung to the air, overpowering the faint aroma of vanilla candles that Sarah had favored. As Laura surveyed the living room, her keen eyes noted the overturned furniture, the couch pushed against the wall as if in a desperate bid for escape. Crumpled papers scattered across the floor told a tale of disturbance, each one a silent witness to the frenzied events that had transpired mere hours before. Sarah's body lay in the center of the chaos, her glassy eyes staring blankly at the ceiling, void of the vibrancy that once shone in them. Laura crouched beside her, a chill creeping up her spine. The juxtaposition of violence against Sarah's serene appearance was a cruel contrast. The crime scene medic had confirmed there were no clear signs of struggle beyond the disarray, which inadvertently revealed the brutality of an attack that seemed unprovoked. A quick sweep of the room revealed something unsettling: an overturned picture frame. Cautiously, Laura picked it up. It was a photograph of Sarah holding hands with a young girl, a glimmer of joy captured in time. Notes were tucked beside the frame. Not just any notes, but erratic scrawls of fear and desperation. "They're watching me. I can't trust anyone." The words pierced Laura's concentration, thickening the air around her. With every detail meticulously cataloged, the detectives took a step back to review their findings. This was no random act of violence. Something deeper lurked beneath the surface, and they needed to untangle the threads of Sarah's life to reveal the dark pattern that had led to this tragedy. As the rain continued to fall outside, mirroring the tears the town would shed for Sarah, Detective Jensen steeled herself for the long, winding road ahead. Answers awaited, but they would come at a price that would expose truths better left buried. The early investigation. The first light of dawn greeted Dunbridge, washing over the town with an unsettling calm. With its assurances to the community that no suspect had been identified, the police launched their investigation into Sarah Collins' death, a task both challenging and heavy with expectation. Detective Laura Jensen gathered a team of investigators, knowing the early days held the key to understanding the landscape of the case. In the following hours, detectives fanned out across the town, conducting interviews with friends, family, and colleagues who cherished Sarah. Each conversation painted a different shade of who she was: a dedicated teacher, a loyal friend, and lately, a woman consumed by unshakable worry. Information trickled in, revealing a gradual neural network of potential leads. But many were frustratingly vague, little more than whispers in the wind. One particular lead caught Laura's attention. A former student, Ben, had recently graduated and was known to have a tumultuous relationship with authority figures. He and Sarah had frequently clashed over his lack of respect for rules in her classroom, and detectives couldn't ignore the anger lingering from their encounters. A visit to his house sparked a flicker of something deeper. Ben's mother sat in the living room, her eyes filled with worry as she recounted her son's descent. Entered with confrontations, escalating until he was finally expelled. While his alibi for the night of Sarah's murder seemed solid, Laura couldn't shake the sensation that something lurked beneath the surface. A hint of guilt, a sense of unresolved tension. She filed a lead for later examination and focused her efforts on the students who had found solace in Sarah's mentorship, those that may have turned against her when things became difficult. Navigating the twists and turns of each life connected to Sarah was like piecing together a jigsaw puzzle, intricate and complex. Yet with each new lead, it became increasingly apparent that the murder had roots intertwined with love and heartbreak, ambition and jealousy. The investigation lasted long into that first day as darkness descended, but amidst the unease, the promise of finding the truth remained the small beacon of light guiding them forward. Determined, Laura understood they were racing against time. As each hour drawn out increased the likelihood of the shadows slipping away, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions. The dead ends. Days turned into a long, exhausting week, and still, the investigation faced a series of frustrating dead ends. Detective Laura Jensen sat at her desk, buried under files and notes, her mind a flurry of hypotheses and possibilities. Each lead that had seemed promising dwindled under scrutiny, trailing off into nothingness like wisps of smoke. The latest interviews with Sarah's colleagues merely revealed the consensus that she was a beloved figure. A few mentioned her recent moodiness, yet offered little specificity, nothing that indicated animosity or fear of retribution. The noise of hope had begun to fade, absorbed by the sobering truth that those closest to Sarah might not have known the burdens she carried. Laura found moments of clarity in snippets of Sarah's life shared by others. Yet, with every heartwarming anecdote, the emptiness in the canvas of her last days grew larger. One name that continued to surface was Megan, a student whose dream of becoming an artist Sarah had fervently nurtured. Megan had exhibited signs of jealousy, especially when Sarah arranged for her to compete in a prestigious art competition while encouraging others in the class. Pursuing this lead once more, Laura found Megan's mother, who was surprisingly forthright. Megan idolized Sarah, she explained, her voice weary. But something shifted in her when she didn't win that competition last spring. She became withdrawn, and there was this darkness. A petty jealousy morphed into something heavier. But when Laura finally reached Megan, she was met with a mixture of grief and rage. "Why do you think I could hurt her? She was my everything." Megan's tears and desperation conveyed sincerity. She was shattered, just as the town was. Laura recognized fragility in the young woman's words and the sheer vulnerability swirling around the house, where Megan now sat, absent of color or law. As Laura left, frustration clawed at her mind. The case was stymied by shadows of emotional turmoil, tinged with jealousy and yearning unfulfilled. The days pressed on mercilessly, weighing heavily on her spirit, whispering that time was... The truth was there, steeped in layers of hurt, but like a distant melody. It was just out of reach. With every passing sunset, the haunted silence of Sarah Collins' case loomed larger, demanding answers that felt painfully elusive. A break in the case. The languid pace of the investigation abruptly shifted one gray afternoon, when a promising lead emerged like a ray of light piercing through heavy clouds. Detective Laura Jensen received a call from the forensic team, who had been meticulously combing through Sarah's personal belongings. Among the unremarkable piles of papers, they had stumbled upon one significant item, a small, neatly folded note with a hastily scribbled message that sent ripples through Laura's already taut nerves. "Meet me at the old mill. 9 p.m. Don't tell anyone." A name was signed at the bottom, Jamie. Laura's heart raced as she recognized it. Jamie Fletcher, a former student who had fallen in and out of Sarah's life and was known for having a volatile friendship with both peers and an authority. There was a dark allure about Jamie, someone who had reached out for help but often recoiled, slipping away from safety when it was offered. As Laura brought the note to her team, a spark ignited in her gut. The notation had a desperation to it, a call for aid shrouded in secrecy. An urgent meeting between Sarah and Jamie could provide insight into Sarah's turmoil, perhaps revealing deeper conflicts that would unravel the mystery behind her death. Within hours, they traced Jamie's whereabouts and located her in a dingy diner on the outskirts of town, her fingers nervously fidgeting with a half-empty cup of coffee. Laura approached her cautiously, opting for an empathetic presence rather than an interrogative stance. "We found something, Jamie. I think it's important to talk about that night." With wide eyes, Jamie seemed to shrink into herself, and for a moment, there was a palpable fear shadowing her features. "I didn't mean for things to get out of hand," she stammered. "I just wanted to talk to Sarah about how I felt. She was helping me." "I swear I didn't mean mixed up how." Laura pressed gently, heart pounding with anticipation. The tension in the air thickened as Jamie leaned closer, her voice almost breaking. "There was something darker underneath. People were watching me, telling me things I thought it was all in my head. But then she got scared. She was scared, Laura. I was trying to protect her." As Jamie's trembling hands recounted their connection, gripping the truth tighter than before, the weight of the tragedy shifted shape. The pieces were aligning, hinting at a reality far more complex than jealousy or mundane rivalry. Equally chilling and illuminating, the promise of a breakthrough now lay within reach, as Detective Jensen leaned in altogether, ready to uncover the many layers obscuring Sarah's tragic fate. The suspect, with Jamie's trembling confession echoing in her mind. Detective Laura Jensen felt as though the fog surrounding Sarah Collins' tragic death was finally beginning to lift. As soon as they wrapped up the interview, Laura and her team convened at the precinct, poring over the new information. Jamie's fear had erupted into a thread they could now follow. And as Laura searched for connections, a name emerged: Daniel Reed. Daniel had once been the closest friend of Jamie's, part of a tight-knit group at school, before a falling out had driven a wedge between them. Known for his charisma that bordered on manipulative, Daniel had been expelled for selling drugs, his charm often misused to gain favor. It was rumored that Jamie had been swept up in his reckless lifestyle, and although their relationship had soured, Laura sensed that a residue of his influence still lingered in her life. Fearful whispers from Jamie's statement suggested that Daniel's reach extended beyond the typical teenage posturing. Gossip had run rampant about his involvement in darker dealings, and many subtly warned others against crossing him. When Laura and her team started digging deeper, they uncovered that Daniel was seen at an underground party only weeks before Sarah's death, an event where Jamie had also been present. Determined to confront Daniel, Laura tracked him down to an abandoned warehouse at the town's edge, drawn by the less-than-innocent whispers that had begun emanating from the local hangouts. The air was thick with uncertainty and dread as Laura approached the venue, her instincts screaming for caution. Inside, the atmosphere was chaotic. Muffled thumps of music interspersed with laughter and shouts reverberated through the dilapidated walls. When Laura finally spotted him, he was as charismatic as ever, surrounded by a throng of admirers. With an easy smile that concealed a promise of trouble, he was an enigma wrapped in a layer of bravado. As Laura stepped forward, his expression shifted from carefree to calculating, an icy undertone weaving through the energy that ignited in the air. "Detective Jensen," he said, feigning nonchalance, "what brings you to my little party?" The encounter was charged with unspoken tension, like an electric current flickering just below the surface. Laura cut right through the pleasantries and demanded answers, wanting to know about his relationship with Jamie, his whereabouts on the night Sarah died, and whether fear had played a role in their interactions. Daniel's brow furrowed slightly at the mention of Jamie's name, but an amused grin crept back almost immediately. "Oh, don't you worry about Jamie," he said, his tone mocking. "She's just a little lost. We all get lost, especially when someone tries to save us." But as the dance in their web of words continued, Laura sensed a vulnerability hidden behind the bravado, an acknowledgement that there were deeper consequences lurking beneath the surface of their lives. Consequences that could have entangled Sarah in a gruesome, unintended fate. As Laura stepped back, she knew they had a suspect on the table, a potential link to Sarah's demise. All that was left now was to untangle the truth from deception and prepare for the perilous path that lay ahead. The trial. Months passed since Detective Laura Jensen first discovered the tangled roots of Sarah Collins's murder. And now the community held its collective breath as the trial of Daniel Reed opened in the Gothic-style courthouse that stood proudly at Dunbridge's center. The air was thick with anticipation and tension, the weight of Sarah's absence palpable through the hallways. The town had watched and mourned. Now it was time to confront their grief, seeking justice. With a carefully assembled prosecution team, Laura walked into the courtroom, keenly aware of the stakes. Daniel's face appeared almost familiar under the harsh lights, but it was the coldness in his demeanor that unsettled her. He wore a smirk for the cameras, playing the role of a misunderstood youth, while his mother sat behind him, eyes glazed over, reflecting a mix of anger and denial. As testimony began, gripping moments unfolded that painted vivid imagery of Sarah, her laughter echoing through classrooms, her passionate commitment to her students standing in stark contrast to Daniel's troubled past. The prosecution laid out a meticulous case, describing how Sarah became unwittingly entangled in the chaos surrounding Jamie and Daniel. Witnesses, including Jamie, stepped forward, their voices tremulous yet resolute, as they recounted the moments leading up to the night Sarah was killed. Jamie's raw admissions of manipulation swayed some jurors, illuminating her own fears and confronting the darkness with which she had been enveloped. Laura listened intently as evidence, messages, and records from Daniel's phone were presented. Each call and text demonstrated a pattern of deception and coercion. Among them was the pivotal piece that illustrated intent. "You better not say anything, or you'll regret." The echoes of those words rang through the courtroom, chilling everyone present. In turn, the defense attempted to undermine Jamie's reliability. accusing her of fabrication and having a motive to blame Daniel for her own failings. An air of hostility rippled through the courtroom as accusations flew, but Laura's instincts remained steady. She knew that beneath the chaos, raw pain lay interwoven between these lives, tying them together like the threads in a tapestry. As Laura took the stand to present her perspective on the investigation, she felt a deep responsibility to honor Sarah's memory. With conviction, she recounted how a simple act of mentorship had spiraled into tragedy, emphasizing the responsibility adults have in guiding their youth, sharing the pressures faced, and the ultimately dangerous game of power dynamics that would shatter lives. After weeks of emotional testimonies and arguments that left the community reeling, the jurors deliberated with bated breath. The atmosphere in the courtroom grew thick with tension as everyone awaited the verdict, a crucial moment. But also sought to mend the community's fractured heart. When the verdict finally came, ringing through the hushed courtroom, it was an unexpected punch to the gut. We find the defendant guilty of second-degree murder. For a split second, silence enveloped the room, followed by a wave of gasps and soft sobs. Justice had been served, but that didn't mend the deep scars of loss etched upon Dunbridge. As Laura left the courthouse, the weight of the trial hung heavy on her own chest. Justice, she realized, was only a first step toward healing for a town steeped in sorrow. She hoped that with time, the wounds would begin to heal, and memories of Sarah Collins would emerge like sunlight breaking through clouds, illuminating uncharted paths of resilience. Yet, as she walked away from the courthouse, it was clear that the shadows created by that one violent night would linger, intertwining the lives of those left behind for years to come. The aftermath. In the weeks following the trial, the town of Dunbridge struggled to find its footing. An uneasy equilibrium descended, settling in like the remnants of an early winter fog that clung to the trees. The gavel's final bang had brought Daniel Reed's journey through the justice system to a close, but the ripples of Sarah Collins' murder continued to course through the fragile scenes of the community. Life resumed its mundane pace. Children walked to school, shopkeepers swept their sidewalks, and smiles returned to faces, albeit with the weight of an unshakable sorrow. Sarah's absence was particularly palpable. An empty desk in the teacher's lounge, and a corner of the school dedicated to her memory, where students would gather to share stories about her impact. Books written in honor of her legacy lined the shelves, each volume binding together parts of her spirit that refused to be forgotten. However, the scars remained. Reports surfaced of students struggling with grief and anxiety. Therapy sessions became a necessary staple in the high school curriculum, and support groups formed like seedlings, pushing through the cracked earth around Sarah's foundation. The town's embrace of vulnerability also sparked whispers of change, a new awareness dawning on parents and educators alike about the pressures their youth faced in a rapidly evolving world. For Detective Laura Jensen, the aftermath was bittersweet. While she had achieved justice for Sarah, lingering questions danced through her mind. Could they have done more? Was there a way to have intervened sooner? To have recognized the danger before the tragedy unfolded? However, her dedication to ensuring that younger generations would not fall into the same traps provided her a glimmer of hope. As the seasons shifted, so did Laura's focus. She collaborated with schools and community leaders to establish a program aimed at promoting mental health, bully prevention, and open dialogues among students. Workshops emphasized empathy, while training sessions for teachers aimed to equip them with tools to recognize distress signals in their students. Each small success planted seeds in the minds of the young, nurturing an environment where fear and isolation could no longer thrive unchallenged. In the quiet moments, when reminders of Sarah lingered in the air, Laura would sit in the park, reflecting on the path that had woven them together through pain and loss. The town began to heal, slowly but surely. With each conversation sparked and every connection forged, she hoped that Sarah's legacy would not only endure, but also spark a chain reaction of kindness and understanding that would ripple outward, enveloping the community in a fabric of upward resilience. Despite the shadows that had encroached upon Dunbridge, life pushed forward. Reminded by the fragility of existence, the townsfolk found strength in each other, reveling in shared laughter, comforting embraces, and the relentless spirit of remembrance. Sarah was gone, but through each new day, an echo of her warmth seemed to dance in the autumn breeze, gently inviting them all to carry her light forward into a brighter future. Reflection. As the sun dipped below the horizon one evening, casting long shadows over Dunbridge, Detective Laura Jensen sat alone in her favorite park, reflecting on the tumultuous journey that had unfolded over the past year. The familiar chirping of crickets filled the air, mingling with the scent of late summer blooms. The quietness was a stark contrast to the chaos that once engulfed the town. But the echoes of Sarah Collins lingered, a bittersweet reminder of what they'd lost and learned. Laura returned to the moments that had changed her life the day she found Sarah, the heartbreaking testimonies, and the moment when justice was served. Grief, she realized, was not a linear path, but an intricate dance with hope, memory, and resilience. Facing the realities of loss had ignited a fire in her, a determination to create a ripple of change that could prevent other tragedies from occurring. It became evident that the collective spirit of Dunbridge was stronger than dark. Through vulnerability, they had discovered strength. Through pain, they had cultivated compassion. With each passing day, Laura saw the community's heart begin to mend, find light in solitude, and emerge more unified. As she closed her eyes and breathed in the fresh evening air, Laura made a silent promise to honor Sarah's memory by continuing to advocate for the youth in her town, ensuring they would forever have a voice in a world too often drowned out by noise. A legacy built on love and understanding would carry forward, illuminating the paths of countless others. Nothing could erase the shadows of that fateful night. Yet as the stars began to twinkle overhead, Laura knew that the light of hope would persist in the hearts that kept Sarah's memory alive and thriving.